tapping in, I'm tapping in, I'm tapping in. Thank you for tapping in to Yo Cuz podcast, man. Y'all know what it is. Cuz on the one and two, man. Thank y'all for tapping in. Thank y'all for subscribing, like, and dropping comments after every episode that we drop on the Yo Cuz podcast show. Listen, thank y'all for tapping in. I want to give a shout out, man, to all my supporters, man, that been supporting the page, man. I want to get a shout out to all my supporters. And I also want to get a shout out to all the new subscribers that subscribe to the Yo Cuz podcast. You feel me? Thank y'all. And I appreciate it. And I will not let y'all down. But thank y'all for tapping in. PSA, man. Jasmine is back in the building and she got something to say. She's on another interview. You hear me? I know y'all don't like her, so guess what? I'm going to still let y'all hear what Jazz is talking about because guess what? She about to run Texas. And y'all going to be sick because she going to lay the words down on y'all, man. So thank y'all for tapping in the Yo Cuz podcast. Let's get lit. Let's see what Miss Jazz got to say. Let's go.
What's going on, Representative Crockett? How are you?
I feel like my head is so much bigger than yours.
Let me get closer to the camera because I do got a
head. No, I'm good. It's good to see you.
Yeah, no, it's good to see you too. So a little bit like your head. I'm kidding. Hey, let's hop in. Like Texas is enormous, okay? Economically, politically, culturally. And what happens here rarely stays here. I mean, for Dallas Weekly readers and, followers who don't necessarily follow politics closely, like explain to us why this U.S. Senate race matters not only to Texas, but also for national priorities, economic policy, and even global influence. So talk to me about this seat and why it's so important.
Yeah, I think the most important word that you said was why. That is a consistent refrain that we hear. And I think that the why is more so about why are we going through this? Why is our country falling apart? Why is it that he can do this? How is it that he can do this? And the answer is that we've not had the numbers that we needed to really solidify our democracy. I remember being in the state house and fighting against the voter suppression bills that were coming through 5 years ago. And we left the state, we went to DC, and Nancy Pelosi at the time was the one that was in the speaker's seat. And she passed legislation that would have protected us from Elon Musk actually being able to buy the election. She passed legislation that would have precluded this administration from being able to gerrymander the congressional districts and continue to gerrymander throughout the country. But ultimately, it's not good enough to make it through one chamber. Making it through the House is only half of the equation. It's got to make it through the Senate. And every time that we look at the freedoms that we are trying to figure out how it is that we lost them, whether we're talking about reproductive access, whether we're talking about voting rights access, or whether we talk about the diminution of the Civil Rights Act as we see the anti-DEI policies on full display, it all comes down to the Senate. When you look at which body has given license and authority for this president and his administration to act with impunity, it is the United States Supreme Court that only gets there because of the United States Senate and whether or not those members of the Senate actually confirm people to the judiciary for a lifetime. And if we will recall, we didn't have the numbers in the Senate. And so therefore, they held up an Obama appointee and just held that seat vacant and gave it to Trump. And then Trump made another one get out. And then another one ended up dying. And they died with less time on the clock than Obama had when he should have been able to have a nominee. Yet they changed the rules of the game because they had the numbers. And so when I think about the fight and people say, well, what's the difference in the House and the Senate? It's like we started the fight in the House, but we have not finished that fight in the Senate. Where was he impeached? In the House? Did he get convicted? No. And that was because of the Senate. And so I think what matters most is that people understand that it's not just a vote for our healthcare and making sure that we have access. It's not just a vote for rolling back the tariffs or implementing the legislation to fairly tax billionaires and corporations. It's not just a matter of drafting those bills and getting them out of the House. We can't get the relief that we so need and we're seeking without changing the numbers in the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
And Texas is key to doing that so that we can have the relief that we need in our state, but also in this entire country.
Yeah, no, the numbers matter, right? And speaking of numbers, we have to talk about the elephant in the room, right? You're going after a seat that is in essence an uphill battle, right? I don't think a Democrat has held this seat in
Oh
Texas in
yeah.
3 decades, I believe.
Okay.
And you're also coming from a state
Teach me
where
something, then, bro.
women, people of color, and you being both,
Teach me
don't
something.
necessarily get big shots like this. So, we see this
Put me on
primary
YouTube,
season has
babe.
been incredibly intense. It's getting messy,
This your
right? At
YouTube
times it
page
has
right
been
here?
messy with a lot of focus on personalities rather than solutions. But one thing I'll say when I hear your constituents talk, they're a little tired of the noise. So when you strip all of that away, right? Why Jasmine Crockett for this moment? Like, what do you have that is required to govern in the time that we're in right now?
Yeah, so if we just do what people should do, is judge people by their credentials. There's only one person that's qualified. I'm gonna just be real. When you serve in the state house, which I've done that, you represent a total of 177,000 people. When you serve in
That's
the
a lot of
U.S.
people.
House, you service 766,000 people.
Look
The
how
state
many
of
people in
Texas
Texas.
is a total of 30 million people, and so I know what it
It's 30
is to
million
have
people in Texas.
a budget that is $17,000 a month to run your entire office versus having a $2 million a year budget and having to run that office. I also understand, what federal laws are and how it
Why you
works
say
on the
that?
federal level
Mhm.
versus someone who, I'm not saying that my opponent doesn't have the ability to learn, but I
It's a
don't know that
cigarette,
we
bro.
have the time for someone to be learning on the job in this
It's a
specific
cigarette.
moment, right?
Yeah.
So you have someone who has actually more experience on the federal level than I ever had on the state level. In addition to that, when we're
It's a
talking
cigarette.
about actually being able to win, and what the job is, let me go back to the qualifications. I talked about the Supreme Court justices and I talked about the judiciary as a whole. The only body that has actual direct oversight over the Supreme Court is the United States Senate. And so having someone who is legally trained,
Got
Mm.
especially as those other
You
justices
can't
are
smoke
coming through
cigarettes on
trying to
live
become a
news?
judge. Listen, I'm not just legally trained. I have practiced law in both state and federal courts, and I know what a good judge looks and sounds like, and am able to ring the alarms and hopefully
You
stop
can't smoke
some
cigarettes
of the
on live,
bad
bro?
appointees if that's what they look like, Eileen Cannon, when they're coming through, until instead of waiting until the last minute. I also owned my own small business, and also while serving on the federal level, I think that I've been everything that Texas is. I currently serve on judiciary, which we all know the incredible Barbara Jordan and the work that she did on the judiciary during the Nixon era.
Mhm.
Got that under my belt. In addition to that, I serve on the immigration
Fact.
subcommittee.
Man.
Being that
I'm
we are
supposed to
a
act like a
border
J,
state and the border is always a
Big
constant
fact.
conversation, I am well equipped to deal with those conversations, both on the federal level as well as the state level, as I was on the committee of jurisdiction that was
Ain't
dealing
no
with
Trump on
Operation
number
Lone
one.
Star, which was the state program that they had going on.
Yeah.
In addition to that, you know, the thing that matters most is that most people are over the Democrats as a party. You can look at the numbers are not good. They don't believe that the Democrats have what it takes to fight. We have a historic number of Republicans and Democrats that are both leaving the House and the Senate in this moment. And it literally is because they don't know how to deal with this moment.
Mm-hmm.
I still find my challenges, I'm not going to lie. But I think the one thing that people can be assured of is that Crockett will not back down from a fight. She will not cower. She will not go into a corner. She will not be scared.
She said she's
I
not
can't
backing
say
down.
what my opponent would
Ain't no
do
number
because
one
most
Trump,
people
man.
cannot project on who someone would be,
Obama,
but I
nigga,
know that people
Obama.
know who I am.
Yeah.
I can tell you that the only time we've ever had to engage in a fight together when we both served in the state house, that was when we broke quorum. I can tell you that my opponent decided to go back and give the Republicans quorum instead of continuing to fight. That is the only thing that I know. As far as our pure resumes, my opponent has taught school. which my dad taught school, my stepmom taught school. That is his background, so I don't have any issues with that. But he taught at a charter school for 2 years, and then he went into politics and he started to consult for charter schools. That's his entire actual resume. So I mean, when it comes down to it, you've got somebody who has
fighting for us,
a pretty hefty resume prior to entering
Yes,
elected office, and has a resume for this specific moment. And I think that those are really the big differences. When you talk about the noise, I do want to be clear, because like I just want to confront it face on. Like, I've been a Black woman my whole life.
I've been a Black woman my whole life.
You think I didn't think about these things? You think I was unaware that I was a Black woman when I ran for any of the offices that I held? You think I didn't realize that? Like, I know this, right? And as I've tried to tell people over and over, we don't live in Iowa, right? Like, demographically, what the Democrats or anybody else has never tried is a Black woman statewide in this way, right?
Yep.
But when we look at who is the base of the Democratic Party, no matter where you look in this country, the base is Black women, right? So when you're starting to talk about races that may be on the margins, the question is, how do you energize those people that you know will be solid for your side? So, like, numbers show I'm really strong with Black women. I'm strong with Black men. Right behind Black men is Latinas. They're almost right up there with Black men. We also know that I perform very strongly with what we would consider to be the working class. And Democrats have been losing the working class. So when you're looking at pulling back that coalition, when they're saying, oh, we're losing Latinos, we're losing Black men, we're losing the working class, these are the people that make up the base of my support. And so I think it's important to kind of just talk about that and recognize that 61% of this state is people of color. So the people that want to push this narrative that only a white man can win, I've got news for them. We've tried that. If it's strictly about race and gender,
it ain't even that, bro.
We've tried that over and over the last 30 years.
The money, man.
And it sounds like these lines are being colored now by socioeconomic status more than, color. You mentioned owning, your own small business, but also that you pull really well with the working class.
We still got to give her a chance.
Let's talk Texas. Both of us are transplants, right? Who have made this state home.
We gave Trump a chance.
Texas likes their money. And I like that for Texas, because if you are here with some grit, you can make a bag. So right now, Texas is growing really fast. I heard yesterday Ross Perot talk about another 4 million people who are about to, come to this state because of the opportunity. So when you look at this primary and Texas voters who are going to decide if you get on that ballot, talk to them about that growth, right? And how they get to share in things like the Texas Stock Exchange that's getting ready to launch, and these AI data centers and crypto mining. But at the same time, how do you also talk to Texas voters about these housing costs that are going up because people like me are moving in, right? The congestion, the being priced out. So as a senator from a state that prides itself on being business friendly in particular, how do you ensure economic growth benefits for everyday Texans so that we can get away from like the personal stuff, the color, the gender, all of that, right? How do you make sure they know their pockets are good with you?
It's about the mindset.
Yeah, I think that's such an excellent point. You packed a lot into that question.
Yes,
so let's go ahead and start unpacking it. So number one, we have to have policies, which our policy page will hopefully launch before the weekend, because I don't think I get to say that I have experience and then I don't actually lay out my receipts for what it is that I've filed and what I've been working on, because a lot of times housing policy doesn't go viral, right? Like those aren't the viral moments, but seeing and understanding the legislation that I've worked on. So you're right. There's a couple of things that are straining our housing cost, whether you're renting or buying. And part of it is the demand. In fact, a good portion of it is the demand and us not meeting the housing supply. And so when you have high demand and low supply, that means costs are high. So I do have bills that are specifically around increasing that. But I want to kind of not silo any of this off and pull it all together. So you talk about the AI data centers. You talk about the growth, and Texas is known for being very business friendly. And frankly, I do believe that's one of the reasons that we have a surplus. When it comes down to our budget, we don't have income taxes that people have to worry about. But you do end up still really benefiting from these companies. The question is, will you have representation that will speak out, that will support and work hand in hand with your local government, whether it's county, city? The state gets a little tricky, but hey, I'm down to work with the state when they're really ready to work, to do things like, okay, if you're going to come in and take resources out of our community and you're going to benefit from this business friendly environment, then you need to make the investments to our infrastructure. So what do I mean? When you start to talk about AI centers, data centers specifically, and the drain that they put on the crypto as well, overall, the drain that they put on our energy supply, it is important to basically not allow people to come in and pull on our energy when we know that our grid is trash, right? So how can you make this mutually beneficial, right? This comes down to, having advocates in the form of elected officials that are going to advocate for our communities. So if you make them invest in the infrastructure, whether it's around the water, because water is a big issue as it relates to the AI data centers as well. And it's not just how much water, but it's also the contamination of the water that we have to be good on. Then you say, yo, y'all can come in. This means, some jobs for us, right? But let's go ahead and get a few more jobs, because we need to go ahead and build this infrastructure that is going to be laid because you are profiting from us. So I think that when you do things like that, and if you have better infrastructure around water, better infrastructure around energy, then that promotes growth for those areas in those communities, right? Whether it's other businesses that end up, moving in, or whether it is housing, right?
Let's go, bro.
Right now, we have a lot of people that are not okay with the type of growth. And I think that there is a balance that you strike, because we do want those revenues coming in, but at what cost, right? And I think that what we see out of the state government is they don't care about the cost. They just like, keep that over there in those communities that they feel like are okay to dump into. And this is where it's so important that you have elected officials on all levels of government that are going to work together to make sure that it's mutually beneficial. I think that if we work on mutually beneficial things, we can see innovation and make sure that the United States doesn't fall behind, make sure that Texas is leading in innovation as we historically have. The chips are a result of Texas. So I think we can do both. I just think we have an imbalance where we're only doing one and not the other. And I think this does come down to making sure that you have elected officials that are promoting an agenda that is going to be smart and powerful for the people as well.
I like that you talked about even adverse things being mutually beneficial, right? Like if there's something that could potentially hurt you, right, you can still figure out a way to benefit from it. Texas has been really the center of the fight of this kind of cultural war that has centered education. And I mean, Texas is a first in a lot of things. Things tend to start here and then kind of sprawl out, right, to other states. So, Texas recently implemented this private school voucher, right? And I'm getting to this growth and workforce readiness via education in essence. So they implemented these private school vouchers, expanding options for some families, right?
Not on the show.
Some is in real thick quotes.
Not on the show,
but also raising serious concerns about public school funding, higher education access, workforce readiness. So regardless of where your constituents, right, the folks who are going to vote in this primary fall ideologically this is a reality. So how do you make sure that families are able to take advantage of these vouchers because they're here, but also that for families that decide to stay the public route, right, that they have the funding to make sure that their kids can take advantage of that growing workforce that we're seeing in this state?
This is a difficult question because when it comes to education, especially the level of education that we're talking about, it is primarily a state issue, which is why the state did what they did. What I want people to know and believe is that they deserve better. They deserve better than their tax dollars, their very public tax dollars being hijacked. And this is another way of the Republicans transferring wealth, right? Taking dollars from people that may need it the most, siphoning them off and giving it to the one percenters. The reason that I say the one percenters is because there is no preclusion that says, oh, if you make X amount of dollars, then you can't partake in the benefit of getting these dollars to basically reduce your private school tax bill or your private school tuition bill. And the reason that I bring this up about the transfer of wealth is because this is just what Republicans keep doing. On the backs of working class and poor people, they are constantly taking from them for the benefit of the one percenters. I like
that.
And so
I like that.
While your question, I get it, and I'm getting there, talks about like, well, how do you as a working class or even, working poor, how is it that you can also get your kid into, say, one of these fancy schmancy private schools? The problem that we have with private schools, they don't have to take your kid.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to. Like that is one of the reasons that it is very inequitable to take these public dollars and do this. They can reject your child.
Yeah.
And we know that when it comes to uniquely abled students, public education is absolutely necessary because they have to make sure that they're making those accommodations. Private school, they can be like, we don't do that over here, right? Yeah. So like, that's why it's so insidious. And we know that public schools have not ever gotten their fair shake, gotten their fair dollar. And now we are basically going to siphon off more dollars. So, what can I say? I can say absolutely get involved. Make sure you know what's going on at your own school boards. And let's do everything that we can to support our public schools. Encourage others to support our public schools and not take those dollars out. Because I just don't want them to be deprived of more money. If for some reason you're just like, this ain't gonna work, then I say do everything that you can to make sure that you can force them to take your kid. I mean, that's, but the problem is you can't force them, right? Like you can't force them. There is no oversight.
That makes sense.
I mean, it is wild and it is dangerous. And
that makes sense.
For me on the federal level, I have legislation to do everything to try to pump additional dollars into our public schools in various ways, whether it's money for kiddos to eat. We know that some school districts make really difficult decisions. And so when they're trying to kind of play with their dollars, this may be dollars that can relieve them a little bit if we can get more dollars in for the kiddos that are hungry. We also propose putting more dollars in for mental health providers, which is also something that our public schools were able to take advantage of in the midst of a lot of the COVID dollars that were coming down and the benefits that they saw, especially in light of kind of what was going on in COVID, but also just giving them the support that they need around some of the unique challenges that school children face that you and I never faced, right? Like when we went to school, we never had to do active shooter drills. Instead, we did like fire drills or tornado drills or something like that. And so giving them more resources, because I know I've talked to some of my school districts and they're like, it's been so helpful, not just for the students, but for the teachers to be able to have the extra hands to find out the reasons for some of our kiddos falling behind, and really kind of digging into that and
ain't
not putting
true,
that
bro.
on the actual
No
teacher in the
way. That
classroom.
ain't true, 99.
It's helped everyone. And so some of my school districts have tried to sustain this without that sustained
So
funding.
you went to
So,
private school,
you know, I do have bills that are for the purpose of trying to get some dollars down for that as well.
Yeah.
And that then would allow some of our public schools to shift some of their dollars to other things. But I am very concerned about what is going to take place. And I think it is going to be important for people to start to talk to their friends and family members in rural Texas as well. We know when the governor was trying to push this before, he lost mostly because rural elected representatives also knew how detrimental this would be to their rural schools.
That's a lie,
and
bro.
So he then put a lot of money, because we have no limits whatsoever in Texas races. He put a lot of money into making sure that he could primary and support people that would just do whatever he wanted them to do. Absolutely. And now that people will start to really feel the effects, I think that we may be able to team up big city and rural Texas and reverse course.
I like that. I like the big cousin metaphor. I think the governor was able to do a lot of what he did too, because the narrative was co-opted and there was this, you know, hey, this is about choice, right? This is about a family's ability to make a choice for their student, even though we know the numbers show that for the most part, people who are taking advantage of these vouchers, say in Arizona that trialed this years ago, those kids were already in private school. They had never been to a public school in their life. So you're 100% in that these folks had already been able to afford private school for their children, and they took advantage of public tax dollars. But the misinformation was where I heard a lot of people beginning to adopt this narrative that Greg Abbott was putting out there. So I actually want to talk about misinformation and public trust and really like credible sources where people are getting their information.
That's another lie, right?
Let's talk about it, right? Recently, an influencer created a video concerning Colin Allred and James that went viral, right? Sparking confusion and a lot of conversation about what was real and what wasn't. So I think public trust is so fragile right now. Where people are getting information can be anywhere from this conversation to,
people go
you know,
to college
a meme, right?
Don't need to use the college
How
degree.
important do you think it is for elected officials in particular to rely on credible, verified sources when consuming and sharing information?
That ain't true.
And how do you see your role as our, you know, potential senator in strengthening that public trust and making sure that people are making informed decisions?
Yeah, I think it is so critical. You know, we sat in a hearing in judiciary or a markup in judiciary this week where they were sharing all kinds of lies and stories, like literally things that have been proven like false. You had sitting members of Congress. They were like, oh, this is why we got to do this bill because of this. And we're like, actually, like, this has been debunked like 50
who told
times.
You that? Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I mean, like, you know, and so, you know, people have to understand that a lot of this is part of an agenda, a very insidious agenda. There are people that are knowing that they're spreading falsehoods and they don't care because it gets at their agenda. And so I do think that even in this race, one of the reasons, even though, you know, $6 million has already been spent to by my opponent boosting his candidacy just since January. And now another $4 million from a super PAC has been purchased on behalf of my primary opponent. I think the reason they're having to spend so much is because people are like, we don't know you.
Big facts.
Like, who are you? Where'd you come from? Like, who are you? And it is because I didn't just pop up overnight. I have a rapport with Texans and voters as a whole. And they know who I am. And, you know, for better, for worse, whatever, they know who I am, right? I think on any given issue, they can almost predict exactly where I will be because they know who I am. And I think it is important to have a relationship of trust. And I think when people don't know you, it's real easy to be like, oh, wait a minute. So as it relates to the situation that happened with Morgan, the influencer who basically outed her candidate, like this was her candidate. I mean,
Democrat.
I don't know if he's still her candidate, but for sure, the only reason this interaction took place is because she, as a Black woman, was supporting his candidacy back in September over Colin Allred, who was at the time running, and Jasmine was nowhere to be found in this discourse.
Right.
And Morgan, started to get concerned as James Carville, who has come back like Tales from the Crypt, and decided to enter the chat, right? And has had very strong words since the day that I announced. And we know that Carville is working with the Tallarico camp. He's been sending out text messages and emails on behalf of him. And Morgan, as a Black woman, was just concerned because Carville has been putting out this anti-woke stuff that sounds more like anti-Black. Okay. So Morgan, as a supporter, which, this is what you want your people who are on your side to do. You want them to be real with you. You don't want them to be cheerleaders. Yeah. You want them to make sure that you engage in real critical thinking.
Crazy,
and so she has a perspective that maybe others on his team did not have. And so she offered that critique. And she was trying to talk to them. And they said, oh, you can talk to him in person. And so that's what she did. And, his response to just kind of like, hey,
that's crazy.
Maybe tell him to tone it down, or maybe just distance yourself, because this isn't really helpful as it relates to you getting more support from the Black community from the perspective of a Black woman. And in response, according to Morgan's account, it was that he was like, well, I didn't plan to run against a mediocre Black man, or I was planning to run against a mediocre Black man, not a qualified Black woman. Now, Colin Allred, if you know anything about him, he is not one to really pop off. People can't say the same about me, but that is not who he is. That's not who he is, right? And I think this really became a big story for two reasons. Number one, as soon as Morgan put it on IG, which there were plenty of people that had sent it to me. I think I was traveling on that day. And so, it was in my text messages, but, I hadn't watched it. I didn't know what was what. And then I started getting all these other messages. They took it down. I'm like, took down what? And they're like, oh, the video. And I'm like, in my text message, I can still see the picture of the video. So I'm like, what? So I was like, let me click this video. Let me see, what the fuss is about. And it wasn't there when I clicked it. And so then I was like, okay, so what are y'all saying? They were like, Morgan put up a video. It was about an interaction with Tallarico, and Tallarico's team got it taken down within less than an hour. So I said, well, how do y'all know that we have access to lobbyists? Lobbyists for, somebody hacked our account at some point, my IG. And at that point in time, I was almost at 2 million followers. We immediately got on the phone. And I was like, somebody took our account. They changed everything. We need y'all to fix this. We don't know if they're going to try to post nudes. We don't know what they up to, but we got to get our account back. And so they did. We have access. And so they were like, yo, we know how this stuff, it was influencers that were hitting me. We know how this stuff works. They made a phone call. I know how this stuff works. I knew a phone call had been made. I'm just saying, not saying who made it, but I know a phone call had absolutely been made. Right. So I was like, well, what was in the video that was so bad that it had to be pulled down? And so I was trying to see if somebody had a screen recorded or whatever. So then that's when somebody on my team was like, oh, it's on TikTok. And they sent me the TikTok of the video. And so I was like, well, first of all, this shouldn't have gotten taken down, and definitely should not have gotten somebody's account completely suspended.
Yeah.
And it felt more like a Trump thing. That's what the Republicans do. Anyway. So I watched the video and I was like, okay. But I wasn't there, and I don't know Morgan, and I didn't believe she had a reason to lie, but I went to sleep. I watched the video. The next morning, she had done a follow-up video, which was more so like her receipts, right? Like, oh, y'all asked me, like, how is it? Because, of course, you can't believe the Black woman. So she then was like, hey, just so y'all know, when this happened, I contemporaneously text messaged one of my friends. Now, as a lawyer, that is very compelling. That is very compelling. If you did something in that moment and it's not like, oh, it just, you know. So, and she had the pictures showing where she was on that day, able to show that that's where he was on that day, all the things. So I was like, okay, well, obviously, by this point, Colin Allred has seen all the noise,
right,
and was convinced as well as a trained attorney. And so he ends up doing his video popping off, and I'm like, I ain't never seen this out of Colin, as somebody who's worked with him and has known him since before either one of us was ever elected to office. So I see all this happen, and frankly, you know, didn't know what the Tallarico camp would do. The Tallarico camp releases a statement not denying that he knows Morgan, not denying that he engaged in this conversation, completely believing that it was a private conversation, which I'm like, oh, okay, so some of you didn't want to be public, right? And then basically saying, well, yes, I complimented the congresswoman, but I demeaned his campaign. And for me, that doesn't ring true in my ears, because if you're saying, oh, this talented Black woman, then the opposite of that would be this untalented. You see what I'm saying? Like, you wouldn't be like, she's a talented person and his campaign is mediocre. Like, that's not how it would go. So, you know, you believe what you want to believe or whatever. But I think the bigger concern for many people, and the anxiety specifically for Black people, is around this mistrust of certain people when it comes to us in the first place, right? And so it's like, if you said something that, because it was labeled a misinterpretation, so now she don't know how to interpret what she heard either.
What's up, Dr.
If you would feel so comfortable to say something like this to a Black woman,
crazy, right, bro?
What are you saying to maybe non-Black people? I think that is the question. And so, you know, people will arrive at whatever conclusions. They will take this information for whatever they want to take it for. You know, I personally want to focus on who can deliver for the people, who's going to be able to fight for the people, who has a track record, because this is the part of politics that people hate, is all of this stuff about my race or my gender, all this stuff about, you know, another, actually the previous front runner's race, right? And linking him to mediocrity as a very accomplished attorney, former elected, you know, like, that's the kind of stuff that turns people off and makes them say, you know what, both sides are the same. And I have felt that on so many levels for a long time, is that I understand people that are like, what's the point in voting? And why should I pick one or the other? Because it's all the same with them. And I think that is one of the reasons that I was like, in this moment, I have to be the person that people know it's going to be real. Everybody knows that ain't nobody telling me what to say. They know that I say the very real things, even if it's things that make people get offended. Like, get offended when my policies are jacked up, right? I'm not here
good information
to, you know, offend people, but I'm also not here trying to work and make sure that I'm just saying what you want me to say. I'm here and I'm fighting because literally people are dying. Like, I don't get why that's so difficult for people to conceptualize, that like everything that I've been fighting for my entire career, from being a public defender, has always been about fighting for people that most people want to throw away, most people have forgotten, most people ignore. That is who I am. Not in a campaign, all of a sudden I'm becoming something. No. Go back and see who it is that I've been fighting for decades, and look at my legislation, and it rings true. So I think building a rapport and having trust is what matters most. And I think that's why there have been coordinated attacks, both by the Democrats and the Republicans, to demean that trust that people have built for me.
Yeah, no, I think you're right in that people have become apathetic.
I ain't gotta tell you that.
when it comes to
I don't
politics in our
care.
country,
I
because
live my
you
life.
said it
So I
earlier,
don't
right?
care
We
about
have the Democrats
Republicans or
who,
Democrats. I don't
for the
care.
most part,
I'm gonna live my
are, in
life.
my opinion,
I've been
losing
living my life.
a lot
Bro,
of
you hear
once
me?
strong
I don't
supporters
worry
because
about
number
that.
one, it looks
But
like
I'm
there's no
learning.
strategy, and
I'm
then we see the
always learning.
infighting,
I'm
and
always
then we
paying
see the
attention.
Democrats kind of
She-
playing by the rules
Yes,
while
she
the
is.
GOP is over
Yeah.
here just in the wild, wild west, right? Like
Yep.
there are no rules anymore.
Yep.
But I think where you stand out, and you said it again,
Right.
is that you show up with a sense of sincerity that I think people can feel even through the TV, right? Like the viral moments are
You feel
great,
me?
but I think they go harder because we know,
Oh,
like, oh,
go.
she just came
But
up
I
with
pay
that
attention.
off the top of her
I know
head. Like
everything
she,
was going
yeah,
on.
like she felt that
Everything.
in the moment and she just
I
said
know
it.
everything was
So
going on.
I'm,
I
but
listen. I
and
pay
this is my last
attention.
question. I want you to talk to people about what makes you ready for this moment. So your background spans, faith, law, governing. I think, was your daddy a preacher?
Yes.
Facts.
Yes, daddy was a preacher. You
I
know,
like that.
you've been close to the
Building the
fire for a
team.
long
I
time. You
love
became a
building
civil rights
teams,
attorney,
bro.
right? You served
I
in the
love
Texas
building
House, now
teams, bro.
Congress.
Love it,
So
bro.
at a time where Texans
I build
and
teams.
honestly the nation, we're facing economic pressures, global instability. I think this is a completely different international stage than any of us have ever lived through. In our generation, we got cultural change. How is your life experience, right? All of those things that has shaped Jasmine Crockett to
Yeah,
be this
yeah.
sincere
I
person.
don't
Like,
know either.
how
I
does that
just,
translate into how
I
you're
just
going to
know
lead
I'm a lame
and
ass.
what you do to set up Texas and the nation for like the
I'm
next
as lost
decade?
in the system.
You know, a
Facts.
lot of people have wondered so much about the Senate. There's
You
always
feel
these
me?
questions about the Senate and
You just
Democrats
gotta
as a
roll with
whole,
the
but
flow, bro.
definitely as the
But
government
still
reopened and
learn.
there were senators
Roll
that
with the
decided
flow,
to
but
give the
still
Republicans
learn.
what they needed,
Mm.
as we are dealing with some of the most trying times that we've seen.
Right.
So that was as they were acquiescing to the idea of allowing the tax subsidies around healthcare to expire, instead of continuing to maintain that fight because the Republicans were losing that fight. So
My
why is it
kids
that you're giving
already
in?
know about this. You feel
Same
me?
thing as
I
it
talk
relates to
about this to
ICE,
my
right?
wife
Like,
every day.
unfortunately, the
And
House
even
gave
talk
them
about
the
this
votes that they needed,
before
passed
I come
the
on live,
appropriations
so
over
I can
to the
already
Senate
know
side,
what they
and then the
talking
Senate
about
came
to
back,
give
did not
y'all the
pass it
information.
exactly as it
Come on,
was, which
bro.
was
I'm
still a
smart.
shock
Believe
that
that.
they didn't just go along to get
So
along.
thank
So
you
I
for
guess
the
we
information.
got to thank goodness for the small
Thank you
win,
for
but
the
they did
information.
pass a 2-week continuing resolution specifically for DHS and
No
around
way.
ICE. And
You
this is
lying.
in the wake of Freddie's death. And we know
The worst president
that the
ever.
Republicans are
Thought
losing this
about
fight.
your back.
You had Greg Abbott come out and say, I think we need to recalibrate. He ain't just do that out of goodwill.
Hey,
I
look, bro.
mean, I don't know what he's done
I
out of
ain't got no
goodwill, right?
answer
Like, this
for
is
that.
polling, right? We know that here just a couple of days
24/72.
ago, the
I ain't got
president
no
was like,
answer for
maybe we
that.
can have a softer touch,
I think
right?
all
Like,
of them
they're
bad,
not
bro.
doing this because they believe it.
All
They
of them
ended up
bad,
saying,
bro.
well,
I
we'll
ain't
give you
lying.
Bovino, right? Even
But
though we're going
Trump
to put
the
it in
worst.
Tom Homan. Like, they are doing this because they are losing the narrative as it relates to all the stuff that he wanted people to believe, that the immigrants are poisoning the blood of our country. The immigrants are the rapists and the criminals. They are losing the plot because
That's from
number one,
DC,
you
bro.
going out and you killing U.S. citizens. So you tell me what ICE got to do with that, right? Like, they are losing. Like, they were winning so
That's
long
DC,
as they
bro.
could
DMV.
make a boogeyman and scare people and make it seem like the Democrats were were okay with your cities being overrun with crime from these people that aren't vetted and are coming to hurt us. They were good when they could create the boogeyman. Now they have lost the plot, right? And they're losing. I mean, even in North Texas, there was recently
George,
a
what you talking
congressman
about, man?
who was specifically talking about, I think we went too far.
Washington, DC,
I think we
bro.
went too far when we started going and getting the dishwasher or this person or that person or whatever, right? So why
Where you
is
from,
it
George?
that it seems like as soon as we start winning, the Democrats just
She do
know
not
how
go
to
to no
lose,
AA meetings, Dave.
right? And so I think that
Where you from,
I
George?
think that's what it's about. I think it's about not just Democrats, but like the Republicans are only responding because they're losing with everybody. We just swung a seat 30 points in Texas. That tells you everything that you need to know. It's about the moment that we're in. So they want you to believe what we can't do.
I like that.
They want you to believe all this nonsense, but they have already invested $50 million in the Republican primary to try to prop up the incumbent,
Bunch of
while
Baltimore
also
people
trying to
got
make you
that.
believe
I like
that
Baltimore, bro.
they are good to
There ain't
go in
nothing wrong with
Texas and that
Baltimore.
it's not in play.
New
We know
York
that
in
the
the
governor
house,
is
Georgia in the
investing
house,
$90
New York in
million
the house.
in Harris County alone in this election cycle.
There ain't nothing
One
wrong with
county,
Baltimore, bro.
$90 million. But they want you to believe that your vote doesn't count. They want you to believe that we don't have a chance. Texas is a non-voting state. I am tired of the
Everybody
pundits
that's
from
on the
everywhere
chat,
else saying,
send me where y'all
you know
from
what?
so I can shut
We just
y'all
got to
up
go get
tonight,
those
man.
Republicans.
Thank y'all for
Whatever
tuning in
Republicans
with
are going
me,
to cross
man.
over, they're going to cross over because the Republicans have made life hell for them.
No, she
It doesn't
not, bro.
matter who the Democrat is. There is no Democrat is going to make somebody who literally says my identity, a part of my identity is being a Republican crossover. They're going to cross over because of their circumstances right now. That is what we are seeing. It didn't matter. Generic Democrats are swinging seats no less than 10 points. That is where the crossover is coming from.
Facts,
The
bro.
question is, who can excite and
I ain't got no
invigorate
problem
and
with
make
that.
the base believe?
New York in the
When
house.
is the last time we had that?
Let's get it.
Because we know, even when it came down to our vice president, who everybody knows I love dearly, we know that there was, she had agreed to put a Republican in her administration. We know that Liz Cheney was out there campaigning for her. We know all the things. And Republicans still chose to vote for a 34-count convicted felon over a qualified candidate. We know that. So is the win really in trying to do what we've done over and over and over?
Because they definitely
Or
don't.
maybe we need to go ahead and take care of home. And this doesn't mean that we're against other people joining the coalition. That's not what it means. It's about where are we going to invest our energy. And right now, I think that that's what you see in this election. You have one person that is fighting to make sure that we can excite the people that normally don't come out. And then we have another strategy that, you know, as the Houston Chronicle recently laid out, they didn't say that I didn't have the
Queen in the
qualifications.
building.
Unlike the
Queen's
San
in the
Antonio
building.
Express
What's up?
that endorsed my candidacy, they went to
Shut up,
qualifications.
man, stop telling
They
her to
went
shut
to
up, man.
the level of policy depth that I have. But the Houston Chronicle, they
Go
number
ahead,
one called
David.
me a dog. And number two, they said that we need to go ahead and make sure that we get moderate Republicans.
Harris County in
If
the
the
house.
electorate remains the
Alabama
same
in
that
the
it's been for the
house.
last 30 years, I have news for you.
Shout
We're
out to my
going to
YouTube
lose.
family, man.
We
That's
have
tuning in
to
with me
expand the electorate.
every day,
We have to
man.
get
I
more
love
people
y'all.
to
You
engage.
already know.
And the people that haven't been
First of
engaging
all, stop
are
calling.
black
First
and
of all,
brown. That's who's not been engaging. And we have to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to get them to come out.
like
That is
Trump,
what I am
bruh?
committed to.
What's that?
And it doesn't mean that I
What's
can't
up?
go into white
What's
rural
that?
America
AHKE.
or white rural Texas. Because I can. Because I live there. Because I served on the agriculture committee. Because I understand the struggles of both rural Texas, urban Texas, as well as suburban Texas. Stop judging me and limiting me by what you see.
You hear?
And actually understand the content of who I am. And there is no candidate in this race that has the ability to not only go to church on Sunday, but to hit the clubs on the weekends and get in the DJ booth, as I've been doing.
Okay.
But
I think you tote your gun too. I think you a real Texan now.
I am a gun-toting Texan. That's right. Who also was licensed to carry, to be clear.
Yes.
License has my guns. But
0227,
also, you know,
cut it
as
out,
we
man.
drop this issues page, you're going to see I've driven farm equipment, y'all. Like, I mean, I know that that's not the stuff that goes viral, but there is actual video footage. You will see a photo because that goes into one of our policy areas of me climbing down or up farm equipment that I literally have driven.
I think you should trade in the bus and just ride around on, like, you know, farm equipment. Me personally, I think you should wrap that. That'll get you rural Texas right there.
Understandable.
That is so funny. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, no, thank you, Jasmine. I know you have been doing work, y'all. We tried to get this scheduled like 5 times, and sis was in the chamber getting on people's behind. So thank you for taking the time with us today. Thank you for going into your background, your policies, your platform, because I think we see a lot of the viral moments, and it's amazing, right? We love the energy. We love that you draw the people, but at the end of the day, when you get in that seat,
I deposited $400,000 from my life insurance policy into my...
Hi, and welcome to Today Explained Saturday. I'm Ested Herndon, and every week I'll be talking to someone in the news, in the culture, or just exploring an idea I can't get out of my head. Texas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett is a bona fide political star. In just 2 terms here in Washington, D.C., as a member of the House of Representatives, she's turned herself into a national name, known for her sharp attacks against President Trump, her Republican colleagues, and even some Democrats. But while the social media fame has gotten her millions and millions of followers, it's also turned her into a little bit of a lightning rod, a favorite target of some Republicans, and a nuisance to some Democrats, who argue that she could be putting her brand above the party's. Congresswoman Crockett's decision to run for Senate was controversial, to say the least, and she's now locked in a neck-and-neck race against Texas State Representative James Tallarico. But the differences in this race so far haven't really been about policy. It's been about candidate preference, about which one of them is best positioned to win, and if Crockett has enough substance to go with all her style. So we came to D.C. and decided to ask her.
You gonna run Texas?
Thank you, Representative Jasmine Crockett, for joining us today.
Absolutely.
How would you describe your base? Who is a Jasmine Crockett voter?
I think a Jasmine Crockett voter is anyone that is frustrated with everything that they're seeing in politics, whether you identify as a Democrat, Republican, or independent. There are a lot of people that have found themselves frustrated and feel as if it doesn't matter which party is in power. There's no one that sees them, hears them, or feels them, or advocates for them. I am the type of person that real people can relate to. I am not the type of person that politicos get excited about. And so my voter is real people.
You were a relatively new member of Congress, but exploded in popularity in May 2024 when you had a famous exchange with Marjorie Taylor Greene in the House Oversight Committee. She talked about your eyelashes, and you replied with one of the great moments of American political alliteration, saying she had a bleach blonde, bad-built butch body.
I'm just curious, just to better understand your ruling, if someone on this committee then starts talking about somebody's bleach blonde, bad-built butch body, that would not be engaging in personalities, correct?
What now?
I wanted to ask a question that I've thought about since this happened. Did you practice that, or was it off the cuff?
No, I did not practice that.
These are you didn't have that in your back pocket? This was off the dome?
No, people have asked that over and over. I actually sat there. I did write it down as we were going through this back and forth about whether or not she was going to be allowed to continue on in the hearing. And as the back and forth was taking place between leadership, I finally got word that they were going to allow her to disrespect me. And I basically understood the rules, because as a lawyer, the first thing that you're supposed to figure out is what are the rules. And then I wanted to illustrate how quickly something like this could devolve if we set this precedent, while also making sure I didn't violate the rules.
Yeah, but in showing how things can devolve if that space is opened up, I wonder if there is any cost to that. Should we want our politicians, as much as we love the phrase, or much as the phrase blew up, should we want our politicians to be clapback artists,
I think that in this moment, you have to understand that politics has changed. And one thing that the Democrats have struggled with is that they continue to be viewed as the doormat for the Republicans. They continue to say, where's the opposition, where's the fight? And instead, we continue to say these are the rules, and we try to play by the rules, as they literally are shooting people dead in the middle of the street, and there's no accountability. And so the reason I personally believe that the Democratic brand has been struggling as relates to their popularity is because people feel as if the Democrats play by the rules. And frankly, I think Americans want everybody to play by the rules. Let me just level set there. I think whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or independent, they actually want a government that is very boring and just plays by the rules, that keeps things kind of going. But unfortunately, that's not where we are. And so that's why there is kind of this fierce urgency of now. This is why you see a historic number of both Democrats and Republicans, in my opinion, that are retiring both from the House and the Senate, because this environment is not a normal environment. And so to respond to it in a normal way, Democrats have tried that. it's not worked out very well for us. And right now we're wondering whether or not our democracy is even going to survive.
I definitely think that there is a clear argument that, Donald Trump has sent political rhetoric left 1,000 times, right? I'm not saying that it's kind of one-to-one, but when I see the moment on the House where you seem to accuse Republican Lee Zeldin of taking money from Jeffrey Epstein, but it seemed like if it was not the same person, I wonder, is there times in which the rhetoric goes too far? Are there times in which you should say, maybe I messed that one up?
No, not in this environment. I don't. I think that, we are really in uncharted territory.
So I hear your argument that you're reflecting the urgency necessary. And so that's why you won't give an inch.
You ain't in the building yet.
You spent much of your career as a public, earlier parts of your career as a public defender, a civil rights attorney. I wanted to know how that shaped your worldview. How did that lead? What were you seeing at that time that said, hey, I want to get into elected office?
Listen, I wake up every day scratching my head about elected office. So I don't know that there's ever been a point where I was just like, oh my gosh, right? I have always been the type of person that has wanted to solve for problems. I mean, that's what lawyers are supposed to do. Someone has an issue, they come to you, they want you to help them. And so as I worked as a public defender, I became acutely aware of how broken our system is. And so, I have so many stories of my experiences as a public defender that have stuck with me. And also, what people don't understand is that when you are a public defender, you're representing indigent people and you're starting to learn the source of why certain things happen, right? You start to learn how poverty can play a role in some people ending up in the system.
I wanted to ask about how you view kind of the question of political authenticity. You're someone who comes up when people talk about authentic candidates and people who are willing to be themselves. But politics is a performance in some ways. I mean, what does being yourself even mean? When you think about how you show up to politics, is this the authentic version? Are we seeing the Jasmine Crockett? That's the real one.
It's me. We recently had a fundraiser down in Houston, and one of my classmates from law school was the one that was hosting it. And she's like, this is who Jasmine has always been. I've always been someone who has been intellectual. I was top 10% of my class at Texas Southern, my first year in law school. I was always very much kind of digging in and wanted to understand. I was always the person that would bring the receipts and wouldn't back down.
You're always clapping back too?
There was always a pushback. If I feel like I am right on something, I've always been very clear about that.
Well, I'm gonna think more also about the policy and kind of your strategy to win too. Yeah. The Houston Chronicle this week endorsed your opponent in the primary and said that when you were asked about your path to victory, you pointed to celebrity endorsements and turnout operations. Now, I know that you have said that the reason that you should be the preferred Democratic nominee is that you plan to expand the electorate.
Yeah.
But how do you expand the electorate past the efforts we've already seen from many Democrats that haven't worked?
Man, you crazy.
Yeah, I don't know what efforts we've seen.
I'm saying if we're talking about celebrity endorsements or turnout operations, we certainly heard that in 2024.
The way that I evaluate this is that I'm starting more so at third base instead of starting at first base. And then when you are trying to engage people that have not been engaged, then it does take keeping excitement and enthusiasm. And the idea that one person can do that in a state of 30 million people, and in a state that has more or some of the most expensive media markets in the country, what you need to do is make sure that you can communicate to people that normally aren't communicated to. And so, you can go on CNN all day long. You can go on MS Now all day long, and you're going to communicate to the same kind of group of people. Texas has one of the lowest voter turnouts in the entire country. But the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. The goal has consistently been to go and get people that aren't a part of the base. And then what happens is the base feels like they are not getting courted. And instead, they're being ignored, and there's an assumption that they will come out. And so for me to do what we've consistently done that has consistently not worked, I don't think that makes very much sense. Now, does that mean
that there are Republicans, and I'm like doing like what we saw in Arizona and saying no Republicans. That's absolutely crazy.
You're saying that's just not the focus of what you're trying to do.
That's just not the focus.
Your focus, if I hear correctly, is kind of the loyal base of Democrats, like the people who feel as if the party hasn't been focused toward them, particularly black voters, and then to reach people who have not traditionally voted, which you're saying in Texas is a majority minority community.
Absolutely.
Okay. But, even in that strategy, you would need, you would still need to activate those non-voters, obviously. And, there has been some controversy with previous statements where you've said that Latinos seem to have a slave mentality when it comes to supporting anti-immigration Republicans. I mean, would it be easier to win those people over to your side if statements like that hadn't been made?
Yeah, so I think we absolutely will be fine because here's the thing. When you're running in elections, people love to just like go and cherry pick and not get full context of statements. Number one. Number two, one of the things that I talked about is I'm like, listen, we know that when it came down to Donald Trump was like, oh, they're poisoning the blood, and oh, they're criminals, they're rapists. He said all these things, and it did not impact him. In fact, to the extent that he actually got more support amongst Latinos than any Republican ever has. But the one thing that is impacting him is his policies. And when it comes down to it, I have a very strong record, specifically as a civil rights lawyer. And I've been very clear that for me, as a Black woman, and the lens that I see things, it is in the lens of the Black experience. I see a lot of the same hate that is spewed towards Latinos is hate that historically has been spewed towards African Americans. And so my goal will be to make sure that we understand that there's more that unites us than divides us. But the third best demographic that I have is Latinas in general. So I think, there are those that want to make inflammatory type of feelings take place. And then there are those that know me because they've seen my work. And so I think that they are like, we know who she is.
Yeah. I'm going to ask kind of a question explicitly. Part of what's made this race more contentious is the question of racism and sexism that seems to be swirling around it. Like, I've gotten into some Twitter fights with folks on your behalf because the intensity of their opposition feels so wild at some times. But I wanted to also kind of put the critique to you directly from what I hear from maybe a certain group of a consultant class. Their argument has been that you represent a Democratic Party that has sometimes used race and gender as a shield, and then doing things like comparing Trump's ICE to slave patrols, that you've engaged in some language that have driven people towards Republicans, right? That this may save your interest personally, but not the interest of the Democratic Party. Can you respond to that? I ask, though, because the specific claim is about whether race and gender have held Democrats back from critiquing certain candidates or have been used as a weapon by candidates to insulate themselves from criticism.
I don't think that's a thing.
Okay.
Like, I run on my credentials. In this race, I have an opponent who taught 2 years at charter school. And then he went into elected office. And when he went into elected office, which is a part-time legislature, he then became a consultant for charter schools. So I'm running on my credentials. I owned my own business. I served in the state legislature. I serve on the federal level. I have tried cases both in state and federal. I have sat on boards. I have done community service. I am running on my credentials. And so when people critique me, when they critique me on things like, oh, how she talks, that's not an actual critique of substance. That is what I think people are frustrated with. If you have a critique about my policies, then go forth and talk about it, right? There are people that say, well, he says that he wants to tax the rich, yet he doesn't have a plan for that. And I did. So if you're going to critique me, and I think that that's where the problem comes in, is because number one, I get critiqued as if I don't have credentials. And he just gets assumed to be.
I want to ask about some policy stuff. I hear you, but I want to get to two questions first. First, former Senate candidate Colin Allred, a Black man who ran recently for Texas Senate, endorsed you this week in a rather controversial manner, I would say. He put out a video which called out your opponent for allegedly calling him a mediocre Black man. You put out a statement in support of Allred. I wondered, had you talked to him about this incident before that video had come out? And what's your reaction to it?
You finally have a viable business.
And all from my mom's garage.
No, I mean, I've been in DC. I've been working. And the most that I knew about anything that was going on was about the young lady.
Okay.
Because I do know influencers, and so
The content creator
not the type of guy to like blow up. And so seemingly he felt like there was some veracity to the statement, because I don't think that he ever would have done that without, doing his own due diligence. My response is that I really want to keep the focus on Texans, as I stated. And, right now Texans are hurting, whether it's affordability crisis or whether it has to do with, the immigration issues, housing, education, healthcare, all those things. But I will say that I wanted to make sure that I made it clear that there's nothing mediocre about Colin Allred. And that is why I listed so many of his credentials. But when you talk about race and you talk about this particular race, it is interesting that Black candidates who have actual resumes are seemingly more so dismissed. But,
Now, I do want to clarify. Talarico said that he used the word mediocre in reference to campaigning rather than his actual individual credentials. And I want to follow up. I mean, because you could see this and say, is this Allred and Crockett using racism for politics? Like, it could.
I don't know how you could see that and do that unless you wanted to be disingenuous. That's that.
But I did want to ask just generally about the kind of cancel culture, stan culture that has come with your internet celebrity. When you see people like Matt Rogers or Bowen Yang getting attacked in your name or your fans flooding their comments or something.
Anytime a politician is making it too obviously about themselves, I'm already done.
We're out.
Don't waste your money sending to Jasmine Crockett.
Oh.
Do not do it.
I must agree.
Don't do it. You're going to waste your money.
Do you think or do you think, that's kind of how the cookie crumbles? Like, that's how the game is played?
No, with the level of attacks that I face, I mean, this is just kind of part of, unfortunately, kind of what comes with it. And I think that, people, for the vast majority of what I saw, they were very clear. Again, the attacks had nothing to do with substance, right? So again, that is why, like, if people lead with substance and say things like, oh, well, she believes in a child tax credit and we think that's stupid, right? Like, if you lead with substance, I think that you shield yourself from some of the critiques. But considering the fact that you're not politicos, considering the fact that you're not Texans, considering the fact that you haven't been talking about any other races in this country, and considering the fact that then you jump in and then you don't jump in with the actual substance, I think that you open yourself up to what looks like is something problematic.
I wanted to ask about, I kind of was looking through your interviews and kind of wanted to kind of distill policy questions into kind of quicker ways to ask about it. The first is about affordability. You've criticized Trump's tax cuts, called for a raising of the minimum wage, the reversal of tariffs, that the billionaire needs to pay their fair share of taxes. But you also have a fair amount of corporate supporters among your finance. Cryptocurrency titans and Web3 developers have given heavy to your campaign. PACs representing Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics have also donated to your House campaigns. Are donors like this consistent with a message of kind of breaking up corporate influence or breaking up kind of billionaire wealth concentration?
Oh, absolutely. I represent Texas 30. And so, when you start to talk about Texas and you talk about Lockheed, Goldman Sachs, or any of the others, number one is the employees that pay into these PACs. That's number one. Number two, I'm all down for the Freedom to Vote Act, which would have gotten rid of some of these things. But one of the things that has taken place is, number one, these are the current rules. And so for me, I've wanted to win. So for me, I've given away over $600,000 just in my freshman term to down ballot candidates, to candidates that are running all over this country, so that hopefully we can get to where we need to get to, so that we can make sure that we do what we do. At the end of the day, the maximum donation that any corporate PAC can make is $5,000 on the federal level. I've raised millions, and so I challenge anyone to see if there's any inconsistencies as it relates to my values and my voting record, and looks like $5,000 was a payoff. And in addition to that, when it comes down to rolling back the tariffs, I mean, why wouldn't I want to roll back the tariffs? I also believe that, you know, if we had billionaires that were paying their fair share, we wouldn't have had this situation where they said, let's cut $1 trillion from Medicaid and Medicare. Our budget is about our priorities. So for me, the priorities are always going to be the people that have elected me. And frankly, the better that we do as a whole in this country, the better that the people at the top do.
So I see a distinction from like a kind of Zohran Mamdani style billionaires shouldn't exist to you saying they should exist, but maybe pay their fair share is your focus.
Oh, absolutely.
Got it. I wanted to ask about representation. What is the pitch to Black voters beyond kind of identity politics first? We have seen communities devolve under a Black president, under a Black VP. What is the pitch to those voters beyond I look and feel like you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think that anybody should, you know, as I say, all skin folk ain't kinfolk. I mean, so that's not really a thing. I think it is more so about whether or not it's somebody who's actually engaged with the community, which is something that I do. I engage my entire constituency. So I think that the pitch has to be, who is it that is here to serve us as voters? And who is it that's going to go off and forget us? So for us, we do quarterly town halls, teletown halls. We do them every single quarter, where people are able to, number one, hear from me and know exactly what I'm doing, and I hear from them. We also make sure that we do what we call mobile office hours. So we don't force people into our office. Instead, we go to them, we listen to them, and we try to stay up on what matters most to them. We do that after hours so that you don't have to take off from work, but we come to you. So I think that it's more so about service. And honestly, that's what we're supposed to be as public servants.
You know, I'm hearing you now like talk about kind of a service forward public approach. And, you know, I can see that kind of in what you've laid out and even in doing some of this research, but it's not like that's necessarily fully the reputation. You know, there has been some belief or criticism that's kind of a me-centric campaign. I mean, is there any validity to the argument that we could see, you know, that the campaign could be more about service or what you plan to do rather than who you are?
Surprise an NFL fan with a gift that comes from the heart. This season, give the NFL fan in your life something that
I think I am service. I mean, you know, there are those that have their own motivations for critiquing. And, you know, I think that the people
Is it just racism and sexism? Like, what do you think it is?
I mean, I think there's a lot of things. I think it depends on who it's coming from. But I've been a Black woman my whole life. So this idea that I'm going to go and be like, oh, well, they're being racist or misogynistic towards me. Like, you think I didn't know I was a Black woman when I woke up and decided that I was going to run for the United States Senate? You think I didn't factor in and make sure that we had enough room to account for that? We did. People love to underestimate certain people, and I think I'm on that list. There are a lot of people that never thought that I would be in the U.S. House. There are a lot of people that never saw me being a national co-chair for a presidential campaign or never saw me actually gracing the stage at DNC as a freshman Black woman or becoming the freshman leadership representative or becoming the fifth highest fundraising member of the House out of Democrats and Republicans. There's a lot of people that have always underestimated me. So for me, that actually gives me comfort because when you underestimate me, then that is my best opportunity to do what I do best.
My last question is just kind of, we've talked so much about polls or ability to win or the general. I'm going to ask something that's beyond that. I know you want this campaign to be remembered for its historic result in the end, but besides that, like when people think about Jasmine Crockett and kind of this moment and what you kind of mean, maybe it's like to Democratic Party, to this kind of position in politics. What do you think that is? Like, what do you represent?
For me, I want that girl that never imagined herself in politics or even that little boy who never imagined a place in politics, but really just wanted real change for their country, for their community. I want them to recognize that it doesn't matter what family you've been born into and whether or not you had the opportunities to intern on the Hill. You can do it too. I never looked at having a life in politics. My parents were not engaged in politics beyond voting. That is what it is to be American, is to be this person that comes from, you know, just a regular background, but somehow can ascend to one of the most powerful positions in this country just because you have a heart to really make this country better. That's what I want people to know.
Thank you, Congresswoman. I appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Listen, man, thank y'all for tapping into Your Cuz podcast, man. Y'all stayed with me all night. I appreciate the love, man. I appreciate the love tonight, YouTube family. Listen, man, y'all be going crazy in the chat, but guess what? I respond to all y'all texts, man. I respond to all of it, man. I'm going to keep up the work, man, to keep y'all happy, man. Like I said, Thank y'all for tapping in the Yo Cuz podcast. Make sure y'all tune in every day. And even every other Saturday, we had a late night show. Don't forget, man. Stay focused with me. Stay with me. Ride with me, man. We lit. Thank y'all for tapping in the Yo Cuz podcast. I'll see y'all tomorrow.